You're sitting by the fire, and someone you know is talking to a person who isn't there. They've been getting stranger for days, hearing voices no one else can hear, seeing things in the dark, laughing at nothing, weeping at nothing, staring straight through you like you aren't even in the room. This is someone you grew up with, and now their mind has gone somewhere you can't follow. The whole group is watching. There is no doctor, no hospital, no medicine, no word even for what is happening to them. So what do you do? This is one of the oldest and most uncomfortable questions our species has ever faced. What did ancient humans do with the people whose minds came apart? And here's the thing. Nobody tells you. The answer is so much stranger and so much more human than they left them to die. Because depending on where and when you lived, that same person with that same mind might be drilled into, cast out, cared for like family, or crowned as the holiest person in the entire group. Let's start with the one thing that changes everything. Ancient humans did not have the idea of mental illness. That concept simply did not exist. When someone's mind broke, nobody thought chemical imbalance or disorder, because those ideas were tens of thousands of years away. Instead, they reached for the only explanation that made sense in their world. Something had gotten in. A spirit, a demon, a god, a dead ancestor. The person wasn't sick. They were occupied, possessed, touched by something from the other side, and that single belief shaped everything that happened next. Which brings us to the skulls, because if you truly believe an evil spirit has climbed inside someone's head and is driving them mad, there is a horrifyingly logical solution. Make it a door to leave through. And that is exactly what ancient humans did. They took a sharpened stone, they held the person down, and they scraped and drilled a hole straight through the living skull, while the person was awake, to let the spirit out. It's called trepanation, and it is one of the oldest surgeries on Earth, performed thousands upon thousands of years ago, all over the world. And now the part that will genuinely stop you. Many of them survived. We know because we found the skulls, with the edges of the hole grown smooth and healed over, which means that person lived for years afterward. Someone drilled a hole in a human head to fix a troubled mind using a rock, and the patient walked away and lived. Sit with that one for a second. But here's where it flips completely, and this is the part nobody expects. Now let me throw something at you that sounds wild but is taken completely seriously. In a huge number of cultures, the person who heard voices, who saw visions, who slipped into another world, was not feared and was not thrown away. They were chosen. Because to those people, someone who could see and hear what no one else could wasn't broken. They were gifted. They had a direct line to the spirit world. That person became the shaman, the seer, the holy one the entire group turned to for guidance, for healing, for answers about life and death. Think hard about what that means. The exact same experiences that today might land someone in a hospital, the voices, the visions, the sense of touching another reality, could, in another time and place them at the sacred center of the whole community. The village madman were sometimes the same person. The only thing that changed was the story people told about them, and it goes deeper than just tolerating these people. In many traditions, the breakdown was the entire point. You could not become a shaman without it. The future healer was expected to first pass through a terrifying period of crisis. Visions, voices, a kind of death, and rebirth of the self. And only by surviving that inner storm and clawing back out did they earn the right to guide anyone else. The madness wasn't a disqualification. It was the initiation. The wound was the doorway to the power. To lead your people through the darkness, you first had to get lost in it yourself and find your way home. And they didn't just label the afflicted and walk away either. Many cultures actively tried to heal them, with calming plants and herbs, with long ceremonies, with rhythmic drumming and dancing meant to coax a lost person back into the circle. Whether or not the spirits were real, the medicine underneath was hours of community, touch, sound, and complete, undivided attention, all poured into one struggling human being. Sometimes the ritual itself was nonsense, but the belonging it wrapped around them was very, very real. And here's something that should genuinely warm you because it shatters a myth. We tend to assume ancient humans were brutal, that anyone who couldn't pull their weight was simply abandoned. but the bones say otherwise. Again and again, we find the remains of people who were profoundly unwell or unable to care for themselves, who nonetheless lived for years. That is only possible if the group fed them, sheltered them, and protected them when they couldn't do it alone. Compassion for the broken mind is not a modern invention. It is ancient. Tens of thousands of years ago, people looked at someone who had lost themselves and chose, over and over, to take care of them anyway. Now let's be honest, because it wasn't all warmth and reverence. Sometimes fear won. A person believed to be possessed by something evil could be feared, restrained, driven out, or worse, especially if they became frightening or violent, or if the group was already starving and stretched to the breaking point. Life was brutally hard, and a mind in crisis with no way to soothe it could end in tragedy. That's real, and pretending otherwise would be dishonest. The response to a broken mind was never one single thing. It was all of them. Terror and tenderness, cruelty and care, sometimes aimed at the very same person in the very same lifetime. But here's the reframe that really matters. Every single thing they did, the drilling, the worship, the caretaking, the fear pot, came from trying to explain something they had no way to understand. Their answers were wrong. There was no demon. There was no gift from the gods. There was just a suffering brain doing something they couldn't see inside of. And yet, here's the deeply uncomfortable part. Their treatment wasn't always worse than what came later. Some of the most horrific things ever done to people with troubled minds happened not in the distant ancient past, but in the far more recent history of chains, cages, and cold stone asylums. Ancient humans, with their spirits and their drilled skulls, sometimes treated a broken mind with more genuine humanity than civilized societies would thousands of years down the line. So what did ancient humans do with people who went insane? Honestly, everything. They drilled into their skulls to free the spirits trapped inside. They fed them and sheltered them when they couldn't care for themselves. Sometimes they feared them and cast them out into the dark. And sometimes they looked at that very same person, the one hearing voices, seeing another world, and decided they weren't cursed at all. They were blessed, and they placed them at the center of everything. So the next time you imagine a mind coming apart, remember this. The person who loses their mind has been, across the long sweep of human history, a demon to be exorcised, a burden to be carried, a danger to be feared, sometimes all at once, sometimes the very same soul. Nothing about their mind changed from one culture to the next, only the story did. And that might be the most unsettling truth of all. How we treat a suffering mind has never really been about the mind. It has always been about the story we decide to tell.